The next panel is, very important and timely. It's going to be led by Michael Gord, who I previously introduced, but I'll give another quick synopsis of his background in a moment. Michael is currently sitting halfway across the world and joining us from a very late hour. So thank you, Michael, for jumping on still and moderating the panel, even while overseas. And the panel today is on NFT opportunities to watch. So the goal today is really to have a discussion with different entrepreneurs who are pushing boundaries in the non-fungible token space and taking different disruptive application technologies or different approaches to the market itself. So Mike, I'll let you kind of introduce the panelists and what they're doing. We're going to get to hear from both a platform, marketing, and kind of different standpoints here. So I'm really excited to hear the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Zach and Mike, Matt, and David. Pleasure to have you guys here. Pretty exciting panel. I'm sure that everyone in the audience is up to date on the bullishness right now of NFTs. It's really blowing up. And in the audience now, we have Mike Perrow, who has both a background in music entrepreneurship as well as blockchains. We have David Namdar, who has a significant background in blockchain investments, I think not music, and then Matt Medved, who is very deep in the music industry. So I'm excited to have you guys here and to hear your perspectives on NFTs. We're starting a bit late, so apologize for that. And Zach, the next panel is the last one, so maybe let's just push everything back a few extra minutes. And let's start with some brief introductions. Mike, you're in the top left. Do you mind starting with a brief background? Talk about music, blockchains, and how that is now tying into NFTs.
Yeah. So my name is Michael Perrow. I think some of my relevant background in this space started in about 2013. I helped build a team over at an independent music label called Monster Cat in Vancouver, Canada. Very focused on the development side and making independent artists more feasible. And then in about 2019, I moved over to Hut 8 Mining as the vice president. It's a public Bitcoin miner, and we were the first public crypto company on the TSX. And I also created a design and management agency called Nightshift. And in the beginning of this year, we partnered with GDA Capital to create an NFT marketplace.
Awesome, thanks, Mike. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And now, David, you're next to Mike. More of a financial investment, family office background. It would be great to hear about how you gone into blockchains and specifically now how you are started to focus on NFTs.
Sure, thanks for having me. So how I got in was that's a bit of a trip back. I was in the hedge fund and finance world to start my career, and then started my career in Hong Kong. I was excited about the idea of a currency born from the internet. I felt like people outside the US had more of an inclination to think about multiple currencies on a daily basis than the average American. And so that definitely opened my eyes to it being in Asia. I left the hedge fund I was at to start my first company in the space, SolidX Partners, in 2014. It was a niche investment bank focused on cryptocurrency. We were one of the first groups in the world to try to do a Bitcoin ETF. We put out one of the very first research reports on Bitcoin and digital assets as an institutional asset class, also in 2014. And then in 2017, I went into Mike Novogratz' family office and planted the seeds for us to launch a hedge fund and a business together that was now called Galaxy Digital. We were a big investor into Hut 8 and dozens, if not over 100 different firms across the entire industry. And then since then, I recently moved down to Puerto Rico and started a crypto fund of my own called Coral Capital. And then additionally, I'm part of a company, Immutable Holdings. And as part of that, we acquired the domain recently, NFT.com, and are building something out there. And then I guess just for some other credibility in the NFT space, I helped put a team together in the last cycle in 2017 called Block Party, and that was really one of the first companies focused entirely on NFTs. They were doing it initially through the ticketing space. Block Party is still around, and they've also pivoted and they're set up something called NFT Protocol, which is more of a blockchain agnostic approach to NFTs.
Thanks, David. Also, I've got to shout out your background. Nice you. Matt, last but not least, huge background, very impressive portfolio of things you've done in the music industry, as well as you being a globally touring DJ. So a bit of a different perspective, all of you guys, which is great. I think it would be worthwhile for you to also share your background and how you got into NFTs.
Sure, great to see you. I'm glad to be here. So yeah, I remember I was back in grad school, kind of focusing on the nonprofit space back in 2013, which was when I first got into the crypto space. And I remember buying like my first Bitcoin at $900 and watching it promptly crash to $200, but believed in the technology, held on. And then when things started to rise again back in like 2017, 2018, that's when I was at Billboard, where I had started and founded Billboard Dance, which was Billboard's dance and electronic music brand. And a lot of the DJs, fellow DJs, since we're all nerds at the end of the day, we're getting into the space, and really good friends with guys like Blau and RAC, who were kind of pushing that forward at that time. And what was interesting too then was that so I started doing some coverage there, and I remember like the first story we did on DJs trading cryptocurrency like went nuts on Twitter, because it was the first time that Billboard magazine had ever acknowledged Bitcoin or blockchain technology, which I didn't even realize at the time. And just started to see and that kind of tipped me off to just what a community there is that exists in the space. And did a bunch of stuff around like music and blockchain, speaking at South by and Ethereal, guys like Jesse Grushak at Consensus and all that. And but I think, and it was Blau who tipped me off to the NFT space at the end of last year. Before that, I ran Spin Magazine as editor-in-chief and running content over at Modern Luxury, the lifestyle publisher. And then, at the end of last year, Blau, was doing his projects with Slime Sunday, and sort of gave me sort of a deep dive on the space. It was like multiple light bulbs going off in my head. I was, absolutely obsessed and have been since, and recently launched a newsletter and podcast called NFT Now, which I'm excited. We got some cool things in the works there as well. So yeah, it's really exciting to see technology that I've believed in for a long time being applied to empower artists in the space I'm most passionate about.
Awesome. And so Matt, let's keep it with you. So you just launched NFT Now. That's exciting. With your background in music and marketing and pop culture, NFTs are hugely relevant. But just to preface for a sec, it feels kind of like NFTs were in the early days of the fungible side of blockchains, like 2012, kind of just before or just as we're getting the first mainstream attention. Although it feels a little bit different this time, because the fungible side of blockchains was a little bit gray area for A-list celebrities, rock stars, movie stars to be participating with. Whereas NFTs, the regulations are, we're not challenging the US dollar, we're just putting non-fungible assets on the blockchain. So it's super blue ocean. And there's opportunities everywhere. So I'd love to hear all of your perspectives on, where you see the biggest opportunities and where you're focusing your time and your energy with NFTs now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One thing that, I've had a lot of conversations with artists, with managers, with tons of people, because I've been, like my feeds, my stories, everything, it's all NFTs these days. And a lot of people are reaching out. And one thing I think is important to remember is that I take for granted sometimes how big a learning curve it is to become crypto native or even just crypto comfortable. You know, like I have a lot of artists who have never bought cryptocurrency, don't know where to begin, and I forget, because I've been in it for enough time, that it is a really steep learning curve. And so I've been doing a lot of hand holding. I've been doing a lot of like compiling resources to share. But one thing I think is really interesting is I feel like, you know, you can make a case that, you know, depending on how you view CryptoKitties and all that, you can make the case that this is the second NFT boom. I think it's the first mainstream NFT boom for sure. And I'm seeing a lot of the same patterns from the creative community and the same like resistance that we saw on the financial side the past, like, because now this is like the third sort of boom cycle I've experienced personally in the crypto space. You know, did the 2013, then did 2017, 18, and now this. And at this point, it's like, you know, all right, like done this, there are certain patterns that I've seen just from my own personal experience. And it's funny to see the creative community going through some of the same patterns of doubt, resistance, you know, skepticism, and the like, that I saw on the financial side. And obviously many of those commentators and you know, major movers and shakers in the space have changed their tune. So I think it's at a really interesting place right now. But one thing I think that's so exciting about it, and why it like lights a different fire in me than you know, than just discovering the crypto space, is I think as a creative myself, as a DJ and a producer and a musician, it is obviously incredibly empowering from the perspective of being able to directly monetize your imaginative works with your fans, and you know, avoiding the middlemen who have sucked a ton of the value out of the ecosystem for as long as I can remember. But also it's so exciting on a creative level. Like as a creator, it changes the creative canvas, the idea of being able to release an NFT. I remember like multiple light bulbs went off when I was speaking to Blau, and one of them was that Slime Sunday project that he did was comprised of mostly 30-second to 1-minute loops. And I was like, dude, like, where did these come from? And he was like, I had all these projects I'd worked on for so long, you know, like, and there was timing, things were off. You, like, as an artist, there's always going to be, you have a ton that just doesn't end up getting released, even if you think it's great, even if you think it's worthwhile. And there are a lot of hurdles you have to think to as a creative. I'm going to use music as an example, but I think it applies elsewhere. You know, it being like, all right, well, this is going to need 2 builds and a break, and it needs to be digestible for a Spotify playlist. And there's like all these hurdles you go through to be like, do I even want to turn this cool little idea into that? And now those cool little ideas can live on their own and be profitable in exponentially more so than playing by the old rules. And it's interesting because I think that this calculus is being seen in other areas too. I had a conversation on Clubhouse with Hannibal Buress about how he's rethinking NFTs for short form comedy, because he has all these like little like short form clips, whether it was like impromptu stand-up routines, things like that. He's like, I didn't know what to do with them. I could like put them on YouTube, I guess, and get cents on the, you know, view, or I could put them up on Instagram and get a bunch of likes, or, you know. And now he's starting to experiment with making those NFTs. And so I think that like it's capturing imaginations of creatives in a way that just, you know, decentralized currency and the like, and all these things that I believe in, it's just, I think it's speaking the language of creatives now in a way that it hasn't before. And I think that that's why it's been such a significant boom.
Really cool perspective. I think that all producers, I'm sure, have hundreds of 5, 10, 15, 30-second sound clips, or you know, pieces of musical creation that might not be a whole track, but that are valuable pieces of music. So that's a really cool thought about how those could all be used now for NFTs. And also really interesting. So NFTs have been around now for years, and I guess the first big boom would have been the CryptoKitty era, which I had kind of forgotten about. But yeah, this is, I guess, the second big wave of NFTs. But David, let's switch it to you now. So you're coming to the NFT market with a huge amount of investment experience. You have just about the best top level NFT domain in the world. Shout out, super cool. Super blue ocean opportunity. You could do just about anything with that. I wonder how you're seeing the market now, and how you're thinking of adding value and contributing.
Yeah, and thanks for the shout out on it. No, I'm pretty excited about it. And I think, to be honest, like this is one of the things which is nice. One of the first things I've really been excited about in the last couple of years. I've been excited about the emergence of DeFi, but what's nice about NFTs in the last couple of months is I've been talking and engaging with a lot of people, from like people who have no experience within crypto, people who have a little bit of experience, or who have invested or tried out, experimented things in different cycles, for artists like yourself, Matt, who are just getting into the space or who've been through multiple cycles that you've seen and picked up some experience and knowledge, investors, really people who have nothing to do with any of the things I've mentioned. And so what's nice is that every person I talk to, if they know nothing about it, by helping kind of set the vision a little bit, I pique their curiosity and interest, and they want to learn more. If they know a little bit, then they're even more excited and want to get involved and figure out how to create art, what to do, how to buy art, how to get involved in these different platforms. And if they're very experienced, they tell me, oh, you have to do this or that, or they're so excited about where I can take this and which direction. And for me, I think, Matt, I really like your approach and what you've been doing, and helping, now that you've gone through the learning curve, and helping other people understand that process. And that's a lot of what I've done in the broader crypto space for the last almost decade now. And so, there's elements of this right now that are reminiscent of the last cycle. Some of the hype and exuberance and, unfortunately, like nonsense. And I think there are a lot of people who are throwing money and chasing things that are ultimately going to end up worthless, which is a lot like what happened in 2017 and 18. But what excites me is this really reminds me of like when I first got involved in the space in 2012, 2014 period, where people are still trying to figure everything out, right? People within the space, people and new entrants in the space. And so what I mean by that is understand the concept of scarcity and uniqueness and security and valuation and all of these different analyses that go into the NFT space. And then not just in digital art, but in other medium, going beyond music as well, into film and then digital representation of physical goods. And so there's all these different realms that people are trying to figure out. And I think, one of the good examples, you bring up CryptoKitties. A lot of people forget that CryptoKitties was a massive play in 2017-18, and really one of the most important early stage projects in the NFT space. Now, the team behind that, there's a team at Dapper Labs who not pivoted, but just kept innovating and released the Flow blockchain and the partnership with the NBA, the NBA Top Shot. So, a lot of times, and I've seen this play out just in the broader crypto world too, you see teams go from one cycle to the next, and either they continue to quietly build behind the radar, or they go from one thing to continue to iterate and launch bigger and bigger things along the way.
Thanks, David. So now Mike, we've been jamming for the past couple years on how to integrate music, arts, and entertainment into blockchains, and now NFTs are a pretty exciting path. As you mentioned, we just launched the Rare.Store joint venture, which is pretty exciting. Would be great to hear your perspective on how you're thinking about approaching the market, and where you see how you see yourself and Rare contributing and adding value.
Yeah, thanks, Gord. And I think Matt, you deserve certainly a shout out for everything you did at Billboard Dance in terms of bringing a lot of credibility to that marketplace when it needed it. And you've been ahead of the curve on the publication side for a long time, and so I'm excited to see what you do with NFT now. And you already have brought a lot of credibility to the space like you had in the past, so that's super exciting. And David, yourself with NFT.com, I think that's super exciting as well, to be bringing new people and educating others on the space. And like Gord said, I think there's a lot of room for everyone to grow, and it's blue oceans, and with the tide rising, all boats do as well. But with our market space specifically, I think there's a lot of room to help guide artists with their strategies and their plans when doing NFTs. You know, a lot of people look at it from just a monetary standpoint, but I think there's a lot of fan integrations that are super valuable. You know, there's abilities to do like airdrops, or even find the emails of people who have attended lots of your festivals in the past or bought some of your merch, and you can give them an NFT or allow them to set up a wallet, and you could have that grant access to intimate experiences. It could be, you know, festival passes. It could be, you know, a number of things. And then those holders of NFTs can then get different drops in the future based on, you know, who's holding it at the time, and, you know, maybe it's future benefits as well. I think the metaverse is super exciting, and like CryptoKitties, anything that is providing a use case for blockchain helps kind of perpetuate the whole industry. And so in Decentraland, you're kind of able to produce events, and they've gone a long way to make sure the video and audio streaming is done quite well. And, you know, much like the concerts that were done in Fortnite with like Marshmello and Travis Scott, I think there's a lot of ability to do that in Decentraland. And so we're working, you know, to try to bridge that gap for a lot of people to create these experiences in the metaverse, which I think is super powerful. And, you know, you can do wearables there, you can sell merch, you can, you know, have NFTs for different access to different things. And so I think that's super exciting. You know, and like Matt mentioned earlier, with musicians being able to kind of tailor what, you know, their fans are being distributed, I think it's cool that, you know, for visual artists as well, where they were just giving their stuff away for free on Instagram, and now they can actually give those away directly to the fans or sell them as NFTs. And so, you know, I was speaking to a visual artist the other day, and he said for the first time in his life, he's felt like a true artist because he didn't need to pay his bills through contract work. And I think that's super powerful, and the fact that you can create generational wealth, I think the fact that you can participate in secondary markets is very strong. And so, you know, I'm excited to help participate with the other marketplaces too. Like, I think there's room for everyone to work together and kind of be a curated place for iconic collectibles, you know, for like almost like a supreme or hype beast of the NFT market. So that's what's exciting me at the moment.
Thanks, Mike. And David, Mike, Matt, we started 10 minutes late, so we're gonna go for another 8 minutes about. If you guys have some more time, that would be awesome. If not, totally understand. But Mike, you started talking about the additional value of NFTs, other than the surface collectible component, which collectibles are valuable for sure. You know, comic books sell for, or, you know, desirable collectibles sell for huge amounts. There's big markets oftentimes. But the collectible component of NFTs, I think, is really just scratching the surface. And Mike, you started talking about some of those examples. But going back to Matt, I think it'd be really cool to hear, you're for sure having some super cool conversations with artists that are already at the top of the music markets, and that now are really leading and championing the NFT market, which is really amazing. I'd love to, and I think it would be cool for the audience to hear how you're thinking about and you know, the conversations you're having about how NFTs and how the ownership of NFTs is more valuable and is a stronger value proposition than the collectible component.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's interesting because, you know, when Blau sold you know, the album, did the album auction, and you know, nearly $12 million, every single person in the music industry took notice. Obviously, it was a kind of a clarion call, and a lot of people rushed in, you know, thinking that their level of celebrity was gonna give them, you know what I mean, was gonna be able to outdo him, and it doesn't work like that. Like, you know, I think that one thing that's really important, and one thing that I've stressed in these conversations, is that Blau, I mean, Justin's believed in the space for a very long time, and he has built up very deep connections with a lot of important people in the community, and also some of the biggest collectors who are like the movers and shakers in that space. And so, one thing that I've always tried to kind of get across to artists who are really interested in coming in, or managers or the like, is that you have to think about it that, think about what Blau did almost like an outlier, because he's a pioneer, and he is viewed as a pioneer in the space. And many of the movers and shakers in the space are people who were early adopters to to this technology, whether it was early to Bitcoin, early to Ethereum, DeFi, whatever it was. And they are very, like, I think, hyper attuned to who is in here for a cash grab, and who is in here to help build this community and advance this sort of adoption and awareness of this technology that many of them believe in. And so I think that one thing that you're also seeing, and I think this is crucial, and this is sort of the conversation I'm having with artists, is there is a NFT and like crypto native community of artists that is forming and has formed. And it's an incredible community. It's incredibly creative, collaborative. People, it's not competitive against each other. People co-sign each other. Artists can co-sign and really put each other on, can move the needle for each other in ways that is more difficult in other industries. And at the end of the day, like I was trying to think about like why it's so special. And I think part of it is, at the end of the day, people, most people, you don't pursue a career in digital art for the money. Like it's not an easy career path. It's a lot of client work, which I think Mike touched on very well. And a lot of the people who pursued this path probably most of the people never imagined that they'd be in this position. And so you have a community comprised of like these true creatives who got in it for the right reasons, all wanting to uplift and support each other. And I think they're very sensitive to the fact that there are a lot of new outside entrants, big brands, big names, big money trying to come in the space. And so it's an incredibly welcoming community. And I think some artists have done it better than others. I think if you take a look at, Steve Aoki did his drop on Nifty Gateway, and he made a lot of effort to connect with the right artists in the space, do a lot of listening, do the clubhouses, be in there, put the right people up, not just be like, hey, I'm Steve Aoki, I played a millions across the world, like buy my shit. But that's not how he played it. He was he did a lot, like some very smart outreach to the community, and they embraced him, and he had a very successful drop on Nifty. And I think, and then there are other examples. I'm not going to name names on the other side, but there are certainly other names who just dropped something that seemed pretty half-baked, and it underperformed, it underwhelmed, because there was no story attached to it. There was no narrative attached to it. And people saw it for what it was, which was just, they saw it as a revenue stream, not as a revolutionary technology that will enable them to transform how they interact with their fans. And, I think one thing that, Gary Vee tweeted it, but I thought it was very, 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 very astute, was if you're not thinking about the other person on the side of that token, then you're not going to have a successful project. And I think that the projects I think the people who treat this as cash grabs are not going to have longevity in the space. And so that's something I've been really getting across to artists. I think that, but I think there's a real amazing opportunity for artists who are independent, artists who have a really unique narrative or a sound that didn't fit into like what the traditional gatekeepers were trying to do. Artists who have always thought about themselves not as a musician only, but as music as one part of their artistry, who do a lot of their own visuals and stuff. Like I actually did some proactive outreach to some rising artists, some lesser known artists who I just thought NFTs could change their lives, because I just know what their art form is. And I didn't think that they fit neatly into the boxes that the traditional industry structures had created. And like, I was like, hey, have you heard about this thing NFTs? And a lot of them are like, absolutely not. And then some of them didn't answer me. And I got a lot of responses in the past, couple months, and had those conversations, because I think that doing it, like it's, like one thing I've also said, and is that, it's much better to take your time and do it right than to rush something at this point. Because, I think it's a long game. It's a long game. And there is a real opportunity for artists to be able to, basically create a sustainable careers at any level. As long as they have a small core group of fans that are willing to support them, you don't need millions of fans anymore. But right now, you don't have two chances to make a first impression. So I've been trying to stress that.
Definitely, I think that you bring up a really good point. So Blau definitely is a pioneer in music, and it's not as simple as just taking your existing audience and creating an NFT. You really need to understand your audience and have your audience believe that your NFT will create will be a long-term ROI for them because of the additional value that comes along with the NFT, which I think Blau really hit out of the park. Last question to David. So all of this from an investment perspective, NFTs are super non-fungible, not necessarily liquid. How do you consider investment decisions here?
Well, I think it's one of the most exciting things I've seen in a while to invest in. First of all, Matt, honestly, everything you're saying about the right approach, it really strikes a chord with me, and that's exactly what the role that I've been playing, and just trying to be a bit of a sobering influence, but also just telling people that this is allowing artists and creators and entrepreneurs to connect with their audience, connect with their purchasers in ways that never existed before, and that's what really stands out to me. And so then, from the investment perspective, I've definitely taken the approach of being a bit diversified, investing into a lot of the platforms that are offering NFTs, investing into some of the tokens directly, investing into, trying to figure out the ones that people are going to care about, that are doing right by their audiences today, and that people are going to care about at their moment of kind of unique moments in history down the line as the whole space grows and evolves. I think there's been a handful of people I know who came from all different backgrounds, and now we're looking at launching NFT related investment funds. So I've been trying to be supportive to them and encourage that. And I think all of this is just what, you need to take innovators, you need to take innovators in finance, you need to take innovators in all different aspects and encourage each of them to kind of help the space grow. And so, for me, it made a big play investing in the space just in the domain, and now in building out a company. And it's something that, the other important aspect, Matt, like you mentioned about Steve Aoki, one of the biggest things in investments in order to really get deep in the space is investing your time and connecting with people late night over Clubhouse and, geeking out over this at all hours. And so that's where those are my favorite kind of investments. And those are the things that, I know in the next couple of years are going to pay off tremendously.
Definitely. The Clubhouse. Yeah. Interesting. And to completely agree. David, Mike, Matt, thanks a lot for taking the time. It was great to chat with you all. I hope to jam on NFTs soon. We are now out of time. So Zach, I'll pass it to you and take it away.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you guys. I think you all brought up some really interesting points. The collectible space, even as it pertains to the rest of the conference here, is kind of an alternative investment opportunity, specifically with NFTs. Is something that's really interesting, and very excited as well with our positioning with Rare and continued research into the subject. I think we're seeing startups today launch community first with a community first approach more and more, especially in the consumer social and social space. And it's really I think that 80% of successful startups have built large and grown large successful communities alongside their business. So it's interesting that these artists are coming with these already built networks and really get to, leverage that, when they're coming to market with their drops. But thank you guys. We'll switch over to the next panel, and appreciate you all joining us.
Thanks, guys.